get off my lawn. Those familiar with the channel will know by now that I have a soft spot for space shooters. Whether it's waxing lyrical about classics like Tyrion, or playing relative unknowns like Nebula Fighter from Holodream Software, they take me to a happy zen place where all my troubles melt away under the onslaught of constant laser fire. The game I'm looking at today is Starcom, a space shooter published by Grey Software in 1997. Not to be confused with either the 1987 animated series or the game Starcom Nexus. I first played Starcom in May of 2020 on the 76th episode of the Random DOS game show, back in the very early days of the channel. And while it didn't set me on fire, I enjoyed my time until being defeated by a boss and getting kicked to the menu, which soured me somewhat, as I still had plenty of lives to spare. Grey Software were a small independent team of Andy Cunningham and Bill Webster, and both of them came into contact with my ill-fated playthrough and commented. In response, I promised them a proper review. 2 months later, and here we are. You were the member of an elite fighter squadron, and your job is to maintain the peace. You intercept a distress call from the Orion Galaxy. They're under attack from the evil Zelkafi. The natives have made too many compromises already, too many retreats. They invade their space, and they fall back. They assimilate entire worlds, and they fall back. Not again. The line must be drawn here, this far, no further. And you will make them pay for what they've done. Only you're ordered not to respond. So instead of having a fighter team backing you up, you go in on your own all guns blazing. Because you're the hero, and you'll defeat these insurmountable odds with your amazing piloting skills. Initially, the game looks like a decent little Tyrion clone, with nice pre-rendered graphics and a generally solid presentation to it. The enemies pour down from the top, and you have 2 attacks. Control, which you'll be holding down a lot to shoot, and a sweeping area of effect attack with your spacebar for things that get too close. The arrow keys do the rest. The enemies are interesting looking and well designed, many of them sporting their own set of devious tactics, rather than simply flying from top to bottom and shooting at intervals. There are large spherical objects chained together like giant sandworms, and they're considerably dangerous if left unattended. Like all good games in the genre, you have energy pickups, upgradable weapons also in the form of pickups, temporary sidearms, and a life system. Coupled with decent sound effects and stereo separation, you've got all the ingredients of a decent but not world-endingly good top-down shooter. Everything is in its right place is what I'm trying to say. To quote designer Andy Cunningham,
"The best part about it is the music, actually. That is worth a listen."
He's not wrong. The tasteful soundtrack is by Half Moon Studios and comes with the game in mod format, which means it can be played directly from the game folder if you want. You're listening to a better quality version of it now. I might even put it up as a separate soundtrack video, it's good stuff. The pickup placement and drop rate is generous in the opening levels, and eases you into the constant shooting and strafing that's a prerequisite for games of this type. You scroll ever upwards until you reach a mini-boss. These are usually large structures with a singular weak point that you must uncover. If this was the entire game, it would be a perfectly adequate, solid mid-tier entry into the genre. But once you've successfully navigated through space, Starcom hits you with its unique selling point. Here's my live reaction from last year. Lavables? Hey! We've gone all Stargunner. We are now... Oh! Starcom is actually 2 games. A top-down space shooter and side-scrolling shooter in the vein of R-Type and Stargunner. This section plays roughly the same but with a different perspective, more cramped confines, and a progress bar at the bottom as you navigate the gauntlet of increasingly hostile craft. What's really cool about all this is that your weapons and pickups traverse over to this new section. It's a seamless melding of the two, and where I ended my previous playthrough after failing to defeat the boss. This time I knew how to deal with the lava boss, and put him in his place. There appears to be about a 2-to-1 ratio between planets and space. You get about 5 minutes in space before you get 10 minutes of side-scrolling, So through the power of math, we can determine this game is more side-scroller than vertical shooter. I found that these levels lingered a little too long and there was some padding of ideas. But then in the space shooter genre, there's only so much variety you can hope to create. When you're done beating a boss, you hit a pretty interlude screen to select the next planet. It's your only break, as there's no in-game menu that I found. Hitting escape quits the level and takes you back to the main menu. And there's no save game system. Instead, you enter codes to get to specific levels. So pen and paper is required. In my initial run for this review, I went through half the levels before being destroyed. There's about an hour and a half's worth of space shooting here, with high replayability if you're willing to enter codes. Why codes? Because for some reason, losing a life in a boss fight meant getting kicked to the menu. I had 10 lives. I should have respawned. I did not. This happened during the first playthrough, and this one. This turns Starcom into a 90-minute blast-a-thon endurance test that will severely punish any fatigue-induced errors on your part. Fortunately, Bill Webster's official Starcom page is still up, complete with cheats and level select instructions. Instead of a lingering shot of this site, the link is in the description. So why talk about this so much if I don't consider it a stone cold classic? Because when you search for Starcom, the top result is me playing it for 20 minutes and being dissatisfied. It's practically unknown. I started the Random DOS game show with an hour time limit, before reducing it to 20 minutes. Starcom went that full 20 and beat the time limit despite my frustrations, so I'm retroactively recommending it. If you go to the level code entry and type 6716127, you then go back to the main menu, hit the level code entry bit again, and then type in a number. When you press play, that's the level you'll find yourself on, without any upgraded weapons. Think of it as like a pistol start in Doom. It adds to the challenge and allows you to complete the rest of the game, which is precisely what I did in 1 hour-long furious blasting session. What I found was an enjoyable shooter, without it ever reaching the heights of Nebula Fighter, Raptor or Tyrion. It's an entertaining old-school gameplay loop, good mechanics, and it has a great soundtrack. It's also completely free to download from Bill Webster's official Starcom site. Overall, I feel it's worth a play for fans of the genre, and a perfect example of a DOS game nearly lost to time, but one that deserves to be played by more people and preserved for time immemorial. So rather than detail my epic battle against the Zelkafi in the Orion sector, I invite you to do the same. Blast your way through the hordes of invaders in this trigger-happy shooter romp, and zone out to the chill soundtrack and copious amounts of laser fire.